All right. So we are now going to be talking about the Mission Impossible franchise. We are going to start with the first 2 Mission Impossible films. Get ready, because we are going to be going through all 6 in the lead up to Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, which is coming out later this year. So let's get right into it. I got a couple of little bits to get through before we get started into our Mission Impossible. We're talking about the first one now, so full spoilers for the first Mission Impossible. Came out in 1996, directed by Brian De Palma, written by David Koepp and Robert Towne, who wrote Chinatown. David Koepp, however, was fired halfway when this got greenlit, and then brought back when it started filming, because they were like, "Oh, we need someone to help." David Koepp, or Koepp, I've heard Koepp, by the way.
I've also heard Koepp.
Yeah, he wrote Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, and the first 2 Jurassic Park films. He's a big Steven Spielberg guy.
Yep.
And Tom Cruise apparently was really interested in doing this one because he really liked the show. This is the last bit, a little bit to get through. It was originally conceived as a sequel to the 1966 and the 1988 series. It was going to be a sequel. It's not clear if it is by the time it was done. I don't think so. I think they abandoned that, but they also said it was meant to be. So much so that Peter Graves, who played the character of Jim Phelps, was going to be in this movie and turned it down because he didn't like the direction that Jim Phelps was going to be portrayed in. Every single member of that original show hates this movie.
I get it. And I'll tell you, my mom hates this movie. Yeah, she didn't watch the franchise because she was a fan of the show.
Yeah.
She grew up with the show. Jim Phelps is a good guy.
Yeah.
And to be fair, like, I think for us, if someone took something that we really liked and made a movie adaptation of it, and they took the protagonist and they made them a bad guy with frankly not very good motivations, then I also wouldn't really like it.
It's true.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Yes.
So I totally understand why people who are fans of the show bounce pretty hard off this one. I think if you were to try to say, like, I don't know what the point is of making it Jim Phelps if it's not a sequel. I don't think it should be. I think everyone who likes that show deserves to not interpret this as a sequel to it.
Yeah.
But if you are going to do that, boy, do you have to develop that relationship and that character better in this film.
Sure.
If that's what you're doing. And I don't think that they do that. So I'm like, why do you even have to keep it that way? Like, just let him be some other guy who happened to be like the team leader and the mentor to Tom Cruise's character. Like, just leave it at that. Yeah. I don't know why we had to do that.
I watched the video about like behind the scenes too. And like, yeah, like you said, Brandon, like, initially it was going to be like a sequel with like the main guy being the bad guy, and I just don't think nobody liked it, so they took it back as much as possible without just removing his name. As they kept his name and took everything else away.
De Palma also didn't want to do a Mission Impossible movie.
He's an interesting choice for this movie because this dude's filmography, like, he's not really an action director. He directed Carrie and The Untouchables and stuff, and like Phantom of the Paradise, the rock opera horror version of Phantom of the Opera.
He didn't want to do this movie. I remember hearing, I don't know if this is true, but I remember hearing that he doesn't even like Mission Impossible. So that could also be why Jim Phelps is in this movie, because he doesn't care.
I will also say in response to that I would say that of the Mission Impossible films, this is the least action film one, and far more drama.
It is.
There's action-y beats, but it's far more about the drama.
5 gunshots. There are 5 gunshots in this movie.
Yeah.
It was, and actually I quite like, I'll get into my review. I like this movie. I don't love it. I think it's good. I think what I like so much about it does feel kind of like a classic, like 90s movie. Like, Brian De Palma's a good ass director. And like, the first 2 Mission Impossible movies are the ones that I've seen the least. Once 3 hit, I saw 3 in theaters and I was on board since then. So like, coming back to this, I'm like, damn, this is like a movie. It's not an action movie, it's a movie. And like the intrigue and the spy stuff and the paranoia, I really dig. This is not the Mission Impossible movies that it's obviously not what it is now. They are just like giant fun, like big action movies.
Yes.
But like the core of like, there's still some of that, but like I like this movie a lot, but like I think I like it more where it is now. I like it being bigger. Because the spy stuff in this movie, it's good, but I can find it in other better places, I think.
Ben, why don't you go?
Yeah, this is my first time ever seeing this movie, and I thought it was good. I definitely, you could definitely tell that this is a movie out of the 90s, a 96 movie through and through. Even seeing like the opening credits of the film, I could be like, oh, that's probably an homage to the original television show.
Like a TV show.
Yes, because when I heard, I forgot when I heard that Mission Impossible was a television show before it was a big movie franchise. I'm like, oh, like as I'm watching, it's like, okay, there's the homage. Yeah, of course, the theme song, and I think like the fuse being lit. It's like that's TV show, and I do agree. Between this and 2, this is definitely more of a drama movie, but also I don't know if it's because of Paramount Plus and how I was watching it, but it was really hard to hear some of the dialogue. So I was really trying to listen. I like really had to like up the volume. It's probably my television set too. That's probably the reason why.
Interesting. You might want to look into the sound settings there because Ryan and I did not have that problem. Also watch it on Paramount Plus.
Yep.
Okay.
Here's the thing, Ben. I have fiddled with my sound settings, and because there were many streaming movies that I had really hard time hearing the dialogue, so I messed with my sound settings until I got to a point where that was fixed. So I also didn't have that issue, but it could be because I have fiddled with my sound settings in the past.
It's probably just my television set. Either way, I do agree. Jim Phelps didn't have really good motivations. I was like, but why are you still doing this though? But the intrigue, the who's the mole, who's against him, like who's against Ethan, why are they doing this? Like seeing Ethan's team go out one by one was heartbreaking. And you're constantly trying to be like, you're the mole. No, you're the mole. It's like, oh, it's a cabal of moles. It's like, oh no, there was just the one, or there was the two. But it was more spy, less action thriller, but to finally see the scene where they're going into the terminal and you see the infamous scene where he goes down and he like catch it and it's caught right before he hits, like Leslie Nielsen is doing right behind Ryan and Sparkz right now. To watch that whole scene play out, I was watching with my fiance and we were on the edge of our seats, just like, no,
yeah,
we were
actually good, man.
We were constantly reacting with the scene and how it was playing out. It was great. It was a great thrilling scene, especially like when the poor guy is constantly going in and out of the bathroom.
Poor guy.
He's just like, ugh, dude.
It's iconic for a reason, and a decent chunk of it is like, to your point of Brian De Palma, like, because he's far more about like the drama and the tension rather than the action. Like, what's so powerful about it is the structure of the scene itself, with the silence, the absolute silence that's necessary for
John
it.
Reno up there too.
The fact that it's not just like trying to be sneaky, it's that there is a sound sensor in the room, and that is part of the tension of it. And I think that's all crafted so very well. That scene itself earns Mission Impossible a pretty high mark with me, just because the construction of it is so intelligent.
I realize that the scene in Charlie's Angels where she has to like maneuver through a sound thing, I'm like, no, that's from Mission Impossible. Okay.
I really like on that. I think what this movie excels at is a lot of the scenes between the building tension scenes, like with Kittredge and Ethan, the first time they meet in the how that's filmed, how that's structured, how the conversation is going. It's really incredible. It's an incredible scene, honestly.
Yeah, De Palma and his camera angles again, like this is like an action,
Dutch.
It's like it's an action movie, like that's not an action movie, and like specifically like their conversation, like there's a lot of overhead shots where you're like looking up at them. I'm like, this is such an interesting, like he has such interesting angles that he picks for these shots, and I'm like, again, this is like, it's not your traditional. It's such an interesting choice to start like a franchise with, and he didn't come back for the second one, which we'll talk about like for better or worse for the second one. But I'm like, to set your tone this way, and then for them to completely scrap it, really interesting. Because like I love the movies that we got, but I could use more of like, if like they improved on what this is instead of going big balls to the wall. I could like, it could have been like a super dope spy franchise.
Yeah, I think that the Brian De Palma is very good. The scene you highlighted, Brandon, as well with Kittredge, like he's so good at ramping the tension with what he shows you visually. Like the camera gets more off kilter as the conversation with Kittredge goes on, and then you get Ethan's acknowledgement and how he shows the shots of the people all around here I've seen already tonight, and so they're agents. You've had these agents on me. it's so well constructed, and I agree with Ryan. There is an amount of like, it's interesting the pivot that they make away from the tone of this entirely, to go hard action in the next one, because I think the Firstborn takes a lot of, outside of its action scenes, lessons from this movie, specifically with its idea of the tension of the spy action, beyond like the actual fight scenes.
That's Tony Gilroy too.
I think there's a lot of that baked into the Bourne franchise. Like that, Bourne feels like it kind of comes back around at least the original 3, specifically the first 2. I'd say they kind of come back around to the idea of what the initial Mission Impossible was doing, and then add in some more action in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
But it does feel like that's where the baton gets picked up from here, rather than carried on in this franchise.
Like the paranoia and like who do you trust, and like Ethan's on the run. Like we've done that kind of stuff before, but like there's just something about the way that Brian De Palma feels that we're like, I'm really feeling it. Like it feels like like the dread and tension is there.
I think it's that Ethan. Ethan is your POV character, and Ethan is the only person who ever feels at all times doesn't have all the information.
Yeah.
Until you're getting to the end. And like you feel for him, because like he's constantly just like trying to gather all the pieces. And he's caught in the middle of it. And I think that's executed so well.
Yeah, we brought up like the team getting taken out, which is incredible. But like, first of all, Emilio Estevez shows up in this movie. And guys, in 1996, Emilio Estevez was a megastar.
Yeah.
So people thought he was going to be in this movie the entire time. So the fact that they kill Emilio Estevez is like a psycho moment.
Well, this is
it's like it's incredible.
Oh,
it's
he was Jack.
Yes.
So I have a okay. Go real quickly, Sparkz. Go ahead.
Yeah. So this is another reason why my mom hates the movie. Mission Impossible is all about a team. It's not about a single agent. And like, obviously the franchise becomes baked around Tom Cruise. Yes, he does have other guys, and like that becomes more prominent, I think, in the later entries. But the fact that like the entire team is eviscerated around him in the first mission of the film, that also really put her off. It was both the Jim betrayal and like, no, this isn't about a team. This is about Ethan.
Yeah.
That was like, oh wow, this is all just not what Mission Impossible was before this moment.
So Ryan brought up Emilio Estevez. Yes. And I'm going to bring this up. I think the first 4 movies have this. There is a tradition of uncredited cameos in the Mission Impossible films, and Emilio Estevez is this one's. Emilio Estevez has an uncredited cameo because he was so big. They don't want to show that he was in the movie, so that when he showed up, people would think that he would stick around.
I question how long is a cameo, because he's in the movie longer than like 5 minutes.
It's not a cameo of I'm not saying it's a cameo. It is what it is called, as in the trope of this is an uncredited cameo that the trend continues throughout.
No, I get you. It's just like when we generally think of cameos, it's like short, and like that dude's a main character, and it's just funny that like there was an entire main character that we didn't know was in the movie because he was so big. It's just an interesting like marketing thing of like, you think you like, again, they don't want to overshadow Tom Cruise, but like how much more money could they made if you knew the biggest star in the world was in it? It's interesting.
Yeah.
But then counter to that, because Brian De Palma was talking about it, like if they had credited him, if he was on the poster, if he was in there, people would expect to see Emilio. But having it be a surprise and then killing him, I think is probably more palpable to
I think Scream like very much showcases Drew Barrymore as like is like being in the movie, and then they kill her immediately.
Same here, right? 96.
Ooh, yeah, good year.
I kind of feel like Jon Voight's sleepwalking through this role.
I do too.
Yeah.
And it bums me out because like I'm not a huge fan of the man himself. He's kind of a shit, but it does feel like, man, if you're going to go this route, like I really wish someone was actually delivering an important relationship with Ethan here. And I'm just not getting it. Like, I don't really care or invest in Jon Voight's Phelps to any extent. And so it makes the moment where like we should feel with Ethan about him dying when we think he died. I'm kind of like,
It's also really funny that like everyone has like, he has like a camera on him, and it's like he just like fake shoots himself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he bought that?
On that was so funny. What's so not funny? What I think is really cool about this movie is that if you've seen it more than once, I've only seen it twice, but I kind of knew the trajectory of it was going. But the De Palma doesn't hide anything from the viewers. Not really. He's not putting focus on the fact that there are people looking at Ethan and the other agents, but you can see them. If you're looking at the random waiter, he's there. And so when Ethan flashes back to it, realizing he saw it too, the audience is like, oh, right, I saw it. So you're on this journey with Ethan in that way.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
In that note, it's very funny to me that when we see the guy who Ethan is pretending to be, the real one on TV, it is also just Tom Cruise in the mask, because they could not at the time hire an actor and then also make it believable for the face-off bit that Tom Cruise.
He does have actually two characters in this movie.
Yeah.
It's the Russian guy in the beginning and the other like glasses guy, but they specifically filmed Tom Cruise both times.
Yes.
So it would be easier for him to look like them.
Yes.
So that was on purpose.
Yeah, I knew it was the Russian guy for the opening scene.
But there's the other guy.
It's fun, but we never see the real Russian guy, but we do see the real guy on the TV screen. And
no, that's Tom Cruise.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Okay,
we don't see the person he's pretending to be.
Sure.
When it's him as the Russian, so like we don't have the comparison of how goofy that would be.
Gotcha.
We do see the person he's pretending to be on the television, and that is Tom Cruise in a mask, because that's how they had to do it.
Some people just look really similar to Tom Cruise, and he looks that way.
John, Mission Impossible 2 gets a lot of flack, but it is the one that introduced the voice change to the franchise.
Sure. Yeah.
Let me tell you, I'm excited I rewatched Mission Impossible 2. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I mean, you're going to say more, but not right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. The old way of watching a movie on a plane, it's so nice to watch an old thing like that, and like you gotta put your cassette in, bring up your little bar, this ruin that plane's cassette player because it had to explode. That is very much full-blown tribute to exactly the format of that message delivered in the show. That's how they delivered it, like straight up the words for Jim Phelps, like all of that. I get that that's completely lifted out of the show, and I'm like, for the people that love the show, it's like, wow, it's really cool because this is before the shit hits the fan.
Ryan mentioned the gunshot, and the point that I was kind of getting to that I want to kind of put a capper on of the idea that De Palma doesn't hide anything from us, is that if you're looking at it, you can tell that that's Jim shooting himself. Like you see the arm kind of turn around.
It looks weird.
Yeah, it looks weird. It's not someone. So like so when you're told that that's Jim Phelps, you're like, yes, that did look weird, and that is why it looked weird. Is because it was Jim.
But what I also like about that scene is that you're so on board with Ethan that for me, I believed it. Like I saw the gun. I didn't think it was like, oh, that's a weird way to move a gun. I was just like, no, not Jim. I was like, no, his team is dying around him. Why are all these friends dying? I thought for real that he was dead. And even when, like when he has his like little nightmare and Jim is walking through the door and he's hallucinating, it's like, oh, this is like, he actually does have a connection. I mean, I do agree John Voight's sleepwalking through his role, through his performance, but Ethan obviously has a connection to him. And when we see Jim again at the telephone in London, I'm like, oh no, Ethan's hallucinating again. But it's like, oh, is he real? Like, I could not tell you how many times my fiance and I were like, is he real? Is that actually real? Or is he hallucinating? Oh shit, he is real. Okay.
Yeah, John, it sucks because like John Voight is a good actor, right? Like, again, like he's a shithead or whatever, but like I think he's trying to be like, I'm calm, cool, collected, but John Voight's not really that kind of guy. Like, I think that he just miscast in this role. I think you got somebody like cooler maybe to be like, he's very reserved. Mm-hmm. And I think John Voight's a really good villain. He is such a good villain. I don't know if like kind of being like the quasi hero mentor role. I haven't seen every one of his movies, but like, he didn't really work for me in this movie. And like, I've seen him in Anaconda where he's chewing up the scenery as a villain. So I'm like, I know he's got it.
I just think that like, if the point of it is this deep betrayal for Ethan, it's not developed well.
No.
And I think that is the thing that hurts the movie, especially in the third act when we get to like him catching on to Jim and everything, is that I'm like, Tom Cruise is bringing it, but like, this is a one-way thing. I'm not getting the development of a relationship. I'm not getting the idea that like the implication of their history and what this should mean to him. Isn't coming off of John Voight's Jim.
100%.
And I think that's a huge miss for the story they're trying to tell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was trying to think of, I was seeing a scene in my head of John Voight, and I'm like, I don't know what this is from. Like, it was just playing in my head. It was from Transformers.
Was it which scene was it? Because I was replaying.
It's John the one when it's the one where Frenzy is trying to kill them
Yeah. Okay.
because he's the defense secretary. Anyway, John Voight is surprisingly good in that one, which is not something I can say about his role in this one.
Yeah, he just doesn't seem like he cares, and I don't know if that's true or not, or what, but like it does feel like he's not invested. Like frankly, the scene that should be the most interesting, as far as like performance, is the one where he catches up with Ethan and they're sitting across the table and he's telling him the lies and Ethan is figuring out that it's him, and it's interesting on Ethan's side, but it's just like bland as hell coming off of Voight. Like it is just nothing interesting happening there. And it should be one of the like best scenes in the movie.
It's half a great scene.
Like in an idea.
Yeah. One actor is like giving their all. The other is just like, oh, it was Grebovich or whatever his name is. It was the other guy.
It was Kittredge.
Okay. It was Kittredge.
He blamed Jim Phelps blames Kittredge.
Yeah. And like, you as an audience don't really believe him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even as he says it, because like the performance feels just empty.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel it's like he's not even actually trying to convince Ethan.
You know who's an actor that I always like, no matter what he's in? Jean Reno.
Yeah, that's true.
He is so cool. I don't care what he's doing. He can be scared of rats all day long and almost kill Ethan. I don't care. You tried. You did your best.
I really love the scene between him and Ethan when Ethan's doing the close-up magic.
Yes.
On the Nautilus. That that is just like two good actors in a room acting. And I'm like, hell yeah.
I think it's also important to like give Ethan personality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think it's a big part of what defines who Ethan is. That like Mission Impossible 2 will mention it, that like he's always grinning on the job.
Yeah.
Ethan loves his job, and I don't actually think that's established a lot in this movie because he's in the midst of his team being taken out.
Yeah, we meet him in a crisis, basically.
But that scene and his play with Max really shine how Ethan enjoys his work.
Question: that wasn't Aunt Petunia who was Max, right?
No.
Okay. They just look very similar to me. I was like,
I do love her. I love Maxine in this movie. I really enjoy her presence, and all the scenes are based around her. I think are a ton of fun.
Yeah, she is. Yeah. She's fun.
I agree.
I do like Ving Rhames.
Ving Rhames is fantastic.
I love Luther. I love Luther forever.
He's in all of them. That's great. That's fantastic. Or almost all of them.
He's in all of them because Tom Cruise isn't. It's not. I don't think it's his contract, but Tom Cruise will always insist that Ving Rhames is in a Mission Impossible movie.
Is it?
He's great.
Is it one of them where he's only in like a small portion of the movie?
He is in the end of 4.
That's what it is. Yeah. So he's almost not in it, but he is in it.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I knew there was one.
He got him in there somehow.
He makes it in just into the wire.
It's a great introduction. Ving Rhames is one of the best parts of the Mission Impossible franchise, and it's a great introduction of his character. I really enjoy it.
I really love the scene where he's talking about. I really love his introductory scene, but I also really love the scene where he's given the knock list by Ethan, and he goes, "I will not let this get out in the open."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The knock list, one of the most used plots in spy history, but I will never get tired of it. I love it because there are always secret agents with identities. Yeah. Gotta get found.
One of my other favorite scenes is the movie where they're having a beer in England, and he's like, I'm going to miss being disreputable because you can tell he likes being a bad guy, but he likes being a good guy more.
I don't believe
there's a line in this movie real quickly that I just want to highlight. Which is Kittredge's line in the dinner scene where he says, "You want to shake hands with the devil? That's fine with me. I just want to make sure you do it in hell." And I just think that's awesome.
Yeah, Kittredge is cool. I do have a small problem with the setup of Kittredge. Convince the mole as Ethan, which is that it's simply. I wish that the agents that were down by the water when she walks over to their target and he's been stabbed by the fence, had already left the area, like to follow where Ethan went or something, because the fact that they don't go and see what happened to her and realize Ethan wasn't there, like you could argue that he has other people working with him just as Jim did, but like the fact that that's not even a part of it rubs me the wrong way. It's a small nitpick, but it is a nitpick. Like the fact that they're just kind of there by the water and they don't tail her doesn't make a lot of sense, especially because they don't know for a fact that Ethan's the mole. It could be her. So I don't know.
That's fair. Is this the only movie where we get a mention of his family?
Of his mom
Like
and dad?
parents? I think so.
Like his mom and uncle. I don't think we ever hear about them again.
I want to say, I could be just making shit up, but I think he talks about them very briefly with Michelle Monaghan's character, the lady he ends up with in one of the 3 or 4. But I could just be making shit up.
Well, we'll find out because
We'll
we're
find
gonna
out.
watch them later.
It's true.
We'll find out.
I
real
do-
quickly, just I do have a point with that, which is that I like that inclusion to kind of give Ethan a bit more sympathy by the audience. I think that was smart.
Yeah. I like Kittredge. I like how Kittredge puts the squeeze on him. Going back to that scene that like John Voight's sleepwalking through. What I do like about it is Ethan, as you are visually being given by De Palma, not what really happened, but Ethan interpreting what happened, and specifically that he pictures Claire detonating the car, and then he's like, no, I can't think of her that way yet, and so he pictures Jim instead. And like you're never told exactly which one of those is the one that happened, but it is Ethan trying to fill in the blanks, and I like that a lot, that you are given very clear visual language of like, this is Ethan running through the events and trying to figure out how this could have happened.
Yeah. I agree. That's a good. It's honestly on Tom Cruise's part a pretty good scene.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
What I like and what I think is part of what makes the whole get in and get the actual list scene work is that the movie turns into a heist for that specifically, and like in every way that they structure it, it is a heist for that section, and it just like changes up the flow of the movie at that point. For that section, and it's a nice feeling to be in on it, because up to that point you are kind of like, again, like Ethan, just kind of like floating around being like, what's happening, and then like you get grounded and you're like, okay, we're making a plan.
Yeah, I really dig this. I really dig this one. I think that honestly, I didn't give my initial thoughts, but I really like this. Like I really think this one is awesome. Not in the way that they get, but like I had a thoroughly good time with this one.
It's operating in a different field, but like it's excelling in it.
Yeah.
Again, like there's a different world where like we kept it in this trajectory instead of going more big and bombastic. And again, like I love the world we're in because they're the best action movies ever made. But this makes me like kind of thirsty for more like paranoid spy shit. I'm like, oh, all right.
I wish Claire were a more relevant part of the movie.
Oh yes, I do too.
For her being connected to Jim's story, like it's never even clear why she's in on it. Their marriage doesn't even feel real. Part of that is the age gap of 35 years between the actors.
Oh my God, he's like, he's double her age.
But because the marriage never even feels real, and then you get to like John Voight kind of not giving a shit about her openly when like all the jig is up. It's like, why even make her part of this? Also, it's honestly on the level of like the movie's a better movie if Claire's just not in the rest of it, if she did die with the rest of the team.
Yeah. Also like in the opening TV part of like the movie where it's like, you know, here's all the characters, there's a scene of Ethan kissing Claire that's not in the movie.
Yes.
So I'm like, they're setting you up for literally nothing as well. And I'm
yeah.
Okay.
And like, I don't really like that angle either, where Jim like throws that at him, like, yeah, Claire got one over on you because you couldn't keep it in your pants, Ethan. And I'm like, did she? Because like that didn't really seem like the story we were telling. And this is no shade on the actress. I think just like from a story perspective, the only useful thing that happens with Claire is her going in and helping them take care of the list and stuff, and like that she's the one who squirts the thing into the coffee mug and everything. But I'm like, man, I just wish we kind of found a different character to do that, because like it doesn't make sense to have Claire functionally be part of the betrayal with Jim. I don't think it works. I don't think the only thing I like about the reveal is that it is Ethan pretending to be Jim, and that's how he catches her.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty good.
I love
how
masks.
he pulls that over on her. But like again, on the Claire front, like it means nothing. And in fact, it would make Jim a little more frightening if it was that he like killed his wife on this mission, and that is part of what has convinced Ethan it wasn't Jim up until a certain point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Be more villainous.
Yeah,
I mean,
also
like,
had a similar
these
problem
first
there.
two movies do not treat women well,
No.
and especially have characters that speak very poorly of women, and John Voight is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
And it's a real big bummer on a rewatch. But that being said, Maxine's great.
Yeah.
And I love her.
You know, I got interestingly enough, whenever they were on screen, Tom Hanks and the woman who plays Maxine, I was reminded of Vin and Helen Mirren and their just electric chemistry on screen.
Yeah.
You mean Tom Cruise?
No, I mean the
In the Fast and
equivalent.
Furious franchise, Vin Diesel and Helen Mirren.
No. He
Oh, he
said
said
Tom
Tom.
Hanks earlier.
Did I say Tom Hanks? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Tom Cruise. Yeah.
That would've been a
I know you're
crazy
talking about
movie.
Vin and Helen Mirren.
But because Vin and Helen Mirren have some spicy chemistry and those Fast and Furious movies that they're in, and I was feeling very much the same way here. I was like, oh, you guys are flirting.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, love those scenes. Love that actress.
Just running through a couple of choice things. What I really like that is a franchise staple that's established is Ethan cannot allow a mission to fail. He's very bad at it. When we are at them being outside the wall, he's very determined to find any way to make the mission succeed. And it is something that I think works for the character's pathos of his determination to try and keep the mission going forward. When Jim says abort, he thinks is what gets everyone killed.
Yeah.
Until he realizes what's really going on. But like, I think that really works. And I think that's a strong establishment. Like, that is a big consistent for Ethan, is that he's very, very bad about letting the mission turn to failure. He will not allow it.
Nothing's impossible.
Yeah. The when he takes out the glasses,
Mhm.
puts them on.
Yeah, that's a real good sneaky bit with Kittredge. Oh, fun fact, the "Good Morning, Mr. Phelps" line, it is a line from the show. It was also going to be the title of a series that never made it to full production. As a sequel series to Mission Impossible, where Mr. Phelps was going to be like running the IMF.
Ooh, speaking of Mission Impossible in the 80s, that show died because of the writer strike.
No, yeah.
80s writer strike. It was originally going to be a basically shot-for-shot remake of the original show, just with higher production value. And then they couldn't do that, and they tried to do something else, and it apparently was just awful, and it got canceled.
Peter Graves apparently beloved in that role of Jim Phelps, which is something that always kind of shocks me.
Yeah,
I mean, like, grow up with a show, love a show.
Sure. Leonard Nimoy was in the first one, by the way.
Huh?
Leonard Nimoy was originally the main character of the first Mission Impossible series.
Brian De Palma has a lot of good, interesting camera choices. We kind of touch on the Dutch angles and everything. I specifically really like the elevator stuff in the opening of the film. You know, we get like a good, seeing through the wall kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think all the elevator action in that sequence is well thought out and executed.
The movie
really
looks
well.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. Brian De Palma really knows what he's framing. I think the only time that it gets a little dicey is around the train scene, because there isn't such an amount of visual effects going on that, like, I think the train scene is pretty thrilling, but I do think like we get a little bit away from the tone of everything else we've been shooting up to that point.
And I was watching that bit, and I was like, man, if he was filming this today, he'd be on a real bullet train.
Yeah, that's true.
It's true.
I really love the firefighter angle for getting in. I think that's a really cool way of them doing it. I love how the score cuts out and uses silence again as tension when Ethan, like the moment before everyone starts dying, and Ethan's trying to, like, in a panic, and he can't find Jim, and he doesn't know what's happening. And like all of it starts to get quieter and quieter and quieter, and then everything's really going wrong. I think silence in general is utilized very well by De Palma as a weapon in this movie. A couple of last ones. I really love the setup of the scene for Ethan telling Max not to use the disc. I think that's just all very good. He's like, oh, you got like, what, 2 minutes? 1 minute? The camera shot when he meets the guy who's going to take him to Maxine, that it's his POV, and he comes up to the guy and it gets him all the way into the car. It's just a really smooth camera move, which is all the more impressive for the time. I just really, really like it. I think it looks really good. And I really love the way the score comes in, and like because we've been so long without it at the end of the getting the list scene once the knife hits and he sees it.
Yeah.
And that's when the score starts to build again. And like you've had it taken away for such a long time. I think it's a really good beat. So I really like that. And the last note I'll say is it's absolutely wild to me that the movie ends on the song Dreams by the Cranberries in the final scene for Luther and Ethan. I'm like, man, the 90s, what a weird song choice.
It is certainly an interesting. I love that song, but what a choice to end your Mission Impossible drama.
Yeah.
To end just real quickly, because we've only touched on the train sequence a little bit, but not really much to say about it. The train action sequence, but I really do like the kind of payoff. Red light, green light. Throws it on the thing and jumps off the helicopter.
Oh, the gun.
I think that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weirdly, and I think honestly, it's like on this extra who does a good job, but like. It just feels so tonally different from anything else in the movie to an extent of the guy who like when the train finally stops and like the helicopter blade doesn't nick Ethan. And then there's the guy who basically looks like he walked out of Whoville and faints. It's like, that's a weirdly goofy bit, but sure.
Some levity.
I was going to say, it's like if you find a helicopter in a tunnel, it's like, go faster. Don't stop.
It was a cool idea to take the helicopter down with the train into the tunnel. I think that's a lot of fun. But
because it was clipped on.
Yeah, they just do trap themselves into like a real weird visual effects moment for the 90s that like it holds up the worst of everything else that's in here just as in a visual sense. But like the far more problematic is the fact that Jon Voight basically doesn't say another word after he gets to the roof, and like, you're not a very important character, so who gives a shit?
Yeah.
I will. One little thing I would say, I like the gadgets. I mean, there were a lot of gadgets. Like the gum is really good. The camera on the glasses is really cool, and of course, I don't know why, but I like the scene. It's the train scene where you only see someone with a boombox and they're assembling a gun out of it. It kind of reminds me like Man with the Golden Gun.
Yeah,
or whatever spies have. Like they take a scene with the innocent object and they're like, aha, it's a weapon. So
I love. Because this is 1996 and technology is only so advanced, but like they put like something in your ear, like, and I can hear you just like you're next to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, technology. Oh, it's so advanced.
Oh, no. The internet, when he's using the internet.
Oh my God, that is so
how like
old ass man internet.
Open, what do you say? Open internet?
Yeah.
Oh, those web pages he found were hilarious.
Even when what's his face is telling us like we picked something off the internet. It's like the way he says it. I'm like, oh my God.
90s, baby.
You could definitely tell the internet was brand spanking new.
All right. So I got a question for you guys. Sure. Do we want to rank it A or A? What do we want to rank it?
What was the first one from?
It's Vin Diesel's. Is this gonna be the best one yet? In my heart.
Ooh.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Well, it wasn't the worst one then, so at least you got that one.
Those both sound like they're bad sounds.
But one is here. Maybe hear it again. One is, and one is.
I will give it an 8 out of 10. If I had to choose, I would go, ooh, because I think that's a better one. I think it's a classic, great, kind of like, because it's been a while since unexpected of what I thought it was going to be action movie. I think it's a great time.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that. Say I also give it an 8 out of 10. It's really a shame to me because I think it could approach, honest to God, a 9 to 10 range if you took Claire and either developed her better or took her out of the story and replaced Jon Voight with someone else who gave a shit.
Yeah.
And like, I think if you did those two things, this movie's like really, really good. Yeah. Like it could be really, really great if like the villain was actually delivering something for the character development of Ethan. And like, it's just Jon Voight not giving a shit really brings it down. But everything else about it is like, especially for the time, like Brian De Palma crafted a very tight, very thoughtful tension spy thriller.
Yeah.
8 out of 10. It still holds up pretty well.
Ben, what do you want to rate it?
I give it I give it a 7.5, honestly. it's dated, but it's not bad dated. I mean, parts of it are bad dated, but it's still a really good drama spy film. I mean, you got mystery, you got intrigue, you cheering for Ethan, you're sort of figuring out the story along, you're figuring out the plot along with him. So, and also, I mean, it has that terminal scene is amazing. It truly is filled with tension, and I can see why pop culture has been spoofing it for years since the movie came out. It's definitely the first of a franchise, but it's still good. It's a good foundation for what's to come.
To your point, Ben, of like a part of it being dated, like I really do think, like circling back, it's just the train thing. But I will say that I do think it serves the movie very well that it is not so action oriented.
Yes.
I do think if they tried to go harder on the action, a lot of those action scenes probably wouldn't hold up very well.
Yeah.
Frankly, The Firstborn doesn't hold up very well in terms of its action scenes. They were so new to the idea of what they were doing, like it's really jarring to look back on. But because it went for just so much tension and drama, this movie actually ends up holding up very well.
Yep. Yeah. I agree with that. I'm with the two of you. It is an 8 out of 10 for me. I had a really good time with this one, revisiting it. I haven't done it in quite a while. I think Tom is excellent. This is, 8 out of 10. I don't really have much more to add. All right. Let's move on to Mission Impossible 2.
Wow!
Came out in the year 2000, directed by John Woo. Director of Face Off. Written by Robert Towne, just him this time. But with story, and I brought story credit here because this is so interesting to me. Ron Moore, the creator of Battlestar Galactica, and Brannon Braga, the executive producer of Star Trek, The Next Generation and Onward.
Weird.
What a wild team.
Yeah, I don't feel them on this whatsoever.
Then the uncredited cameo for this episode is Anthony Hopkins, and I don't know why.
I think he's awesome. His little 5 minutes are great. He's such a little ass. He's so mean. He has the best line in the movie. The best line in the movie is like, "Well, it's not Mission Possible, Ethan.
It's not Mission Difficult.
It's not Mission Difficult.
It's not Mission Difficult. This should be
a
cakewalk for you."
Yeah.
This is Mission Impossible. Mission Difficult should be a God. The fact when he shows up, I'm like, why are you here? I don't know.
So he was supposed to be Ian McKellen. Fun fact.
Yes.
Oh.
And one of those. This is Mission Impossible 2 is it. I'm not joking. Fundamentally changed genre fiction forever because there are two people in this movie that in terms of recasting that X-Men and Lord of the Rings, their major stars would be different. And we'll get into one. Ian McKellen was in Lord of the Rings. He was going to do Mission Impossible. Even though it was a small shoot, it still was going to be scheduling issues.
Did you mean X-Men or Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings for Ian McKellen.
Okay.
Yeah. He was fine for X-Men.
Okay.
Doug Ray Scott, who is the villain of this movie, he was cast as Wolverine. He was Wolverine in X-Men.
God bless that didn't happen.
And he got injured doing the motorcycle stunt in the finale of this movie. So because of scheduling, I think he's a good actor, but like we did better with Hugh Jackman. But Hugh Jackman was brought in like 2 weeks before filming. Like, we need an actor because the guy got hurt. And so like we lucked out on because of Mission Impossible 2.
Well, at least Mission Impossible 2's legacy is good for something.
Yeah. Hey, man. I'm not going to say this is a good movie, but y'all, I had a really good time. This has the lowest of, probably the whole franchise, the lowest lows for sure. But I love John Woo. You did mention Face Off. He's probably the Hong Kong cinema godfather of action movies. Hard Boiled, Hard Target, The Killer. Like the dude is bona fide badass. And he is, if anything, he feels a little restricted in this movie with how violent of a filmmaker he is. He is incredibly violent. He makes only rated R movies. So the first thing that happens in this movie is a silent neck snap. And I was like, interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. I think the beginning is awesome. And then some of the Tandy Newton stuff is a little questionable. Tandy Way, thank you. Tanned Away, because I looked up the DHs. Yeah, Tanned Away, thank you. I think the action in this movie is awesome. And I eat camp up. Like, this is not an accident the way this movie is made. This is a Hong Kong filmmaker making an American action movie, and I get people not liking this movie. Again, it has the lowest lows. Like, I think there's some really bad shit in this movie. That final action scene is incredible and really fun, and the inspiration for a lot of things I grew up with. I think this movie is super fun in the same way Too Fast, Too Furious is. Not a good movie. I'm glad I watched it. Hell of a good time.
Sure.
So when the movie started, I think the opening is awesome. Right up till Ethan throws the glasses and the thing and next with the theme song. I'm like, hell, oh my god, yeah, I've been wrong about this movie my whole life. I'm about to become like I became a Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift lover. I'm about to become a Mission Impossible 2 lover. Let's do this. But as it kept going, I lost interest, and by the time we get to the final action sequence, I believe it's too long, and I've checked out of the movie.
Sure.
I completely second that, because there are parts of this movie, especially during the second act into the third act, I felt like the movie was dragging, and I was like, I don't want to check to see how long it's going to be, but I really hope this movie ends soon. The action piece in the Biosign where Ethan's trying to destroy the virus and only one survives. I think that's a great scene, especially with Ambrose like doing the whole like, I know exactly what he's going to do because I played Ethan before.
I love that.
And he's every step ahead of him. I think that's a great scene, and Ethan's just falling for the trap. I think that's really cool. But there were parts of this movie where I'm kind of like that scene in Holy Grail, Monty Python, where they're like, get on with it.
I will say before you guys give your thoughts, this movie is way too long. And after the biosec or whatever action scene, I was like, okay, this feels like the end of the movie, right? And I looked, and there's still 30 minutes. And yes. I do think
it should be 90.
And I do think there is great action afterwards, but I definitely felt like, oh man, this movie's dragging.
I think the motorcycle chase is better than the final fight to an extent. I'll get into that. I'm pretty negative on this one. Mm-hmm. I don't think this is John Woo's finest showing by a pretty large margin, and whether that's faults of his own in some cases or faults of people on the crew or the studio specifically, the editing in this is terrible. And I don't just mean that because of like John Woo's own style of filmmaking. There's a lot of really inventive camera shot decisions that John Woo makes here that I really, really like. The problem is that I'm not going to say it's him. I'm going to say it could potentially be studio interference or editor. I don't know. But the editing is bad. There's a consistent breaking in the action scenes of the 180-degree line that frankly gets confusing. There are shot clips. There's this one part in the final fight where like Tom Cruise is punching Ambrose, and like it is a different shot midway through, but it's the same, like it's just a different take. And he comes back for the other punch, but if you watch, like it clips, he's out of place all of a sudden. Like it's literally a different take where they liked the third punch better on that one for some reason. So they clipped it in, and like it's ugly. It is just really ugly editing.
What if I told you the first cut of this movie was 3.5 hours?
God.
So I totally believe that the editing, obviously no movie should be that long, especially a Mission Impossible movie, but right. Like he shot for the stars, and I think they were like, you got to make this a 2-hour movie. So shit got cut badly.
And that could be what we end up with as a final product. Just it's not the best of what I think John Woo could do with action. And then the other part of it, and I will say that this isn't entirely on this film. I am like Ryan, I came in at 3 and invested forward. When I went back to look at 2, 3, 4, and what would be the rest of the series was already in my head. And this, to me, doesn't feel like Mission Impossible. It feels so away from the first one and then away from the rest of them that I'm like, this just doesn't feel like it belongs. Like I barely get the idea of Ethan in this. I don't feel
he's
like
not the same character at all.
It doesn't feel like it lives in the world. The tone of it is all wrong. Like it just even if it's retroactive, it just no longer belongs in the franchise to me. And so it makes it really hard to engage with in that way. And again, not entirely this movie's fault, but it's so trapped by its time period and the idea of what an action movie should be. And I think specifically like a big blockbuster action movie should be, and not necessarily what a John Woo action movie
This
should
also
be.
came out a year after The Matrix, by the way, everyone.
Oh, no wonder. I could tell the Matrix shot.
I think the studio specifically, like they wanted to get a big action guy like John Woo. The Matrix is inspired by John Woo movies, among other things.
Right.
So I have to imagine they're like, hey, can you do what you do for us in this thing? And then we'll edit the shit out of it and to make it the highest grossing movie of the year, by the way. It was the highest grossing movie of 2000, which is bananas. It was the first movie in 3,000 screens. That's crazy. Big
Oh my
movie.
God.
That's crazy to think. Yeah, I don't think this movie's particularly good, but like, it is John Woo still doing his thing. So like, I find tremendous value in this movie. I'm never going to rewatch it ever again. What I will redo is rewatch the scenes on YouTube where they have a motorcycle fight. It is. I can't imagine watching this in the theater in the year 2000. Like, you love that first Mission Impossible movie. You're like, cool, I'm getting another, like, maybe a Brian De Palma spy thriller. And it opens with Hans Zimmer whipping guitar, which I think the score for this movie, you know, it is not the Mission Impossible standard. I think it's awesome for what this movie is trying to do. Hans Zimmer was given, make a rock version of Mission Impossible, and he did it. And he nailed it. I think it's awesome.
I want to say some positives also, because on that, yes, the music. I actually really like the music. The moments, especially when it goes like really hard, I think effectively build up hype again. Hans Zimmer is doing some legwork in this movie, and it shows in a good way.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And the opening is just awesome. Like, honestly, like I really like the opening with the doctor, and then everything up until, like, I already said it, but like everything up until the igniting thing, like I'm like really invested in the movie. That's when I'm mostly invested in that film. In this film is in this moment. Yeah,
because you can immediately tell. Well, not immediate. Sorry, after a while, you can tell like Tom Cruise is acting a little shifty. He's acting a little like, you know, a nega Tom. And nega Ethan, and then, you know, obviously they do the mask thing, and like it's a good reveal. I think there's like 12,000 more mask reveals in this movie, but honestly, a lot of them work for me because, like, you know, it's just I'm here for it. Like,
I'll even say all of them work for me. I like every reveal of evil Ethan. I like when every single time we learn who it is, and then when Ethan puts the mask on the guy the guy who lost his finger, Stam.
Oh yeah.
Or Stamp, I think.
Stamp. I think that's awesome when it's revealed that it's actually Ethan.
Really, maybe because I how much I dislike John Voight. I really like Ambrose as a villain. Like, I love the trope of having like the mirror villain. Like, I am like you, but the dark side of you. I think that's awesome. And again, I think my favorite scene is when he's like, I know exactly what Ethan's going to do. So Ethan's like, oh, the ground's too thin, so I go to upstairs. I know Ethan's going upstairs. We're going to go from the ground. And I'm just like, that's some awesome villain spy shit. I don't know why he is evil. They don't really say why he decided to go evil.
Right.
And again, like, it doesn't super bother me because, like, the vibe this movie's throwing off, it's just like, who cares? But like, I really like him and his whole crew. It's also really funny that his entire crew are all like really good character actors who I love. Stamp is the bad guy from Moulin Rouge, my favorite musical. Yep. Richard Roxburgh, he's an awesome villain, and I love that dude in anything he shows up in. I think his whole crew, like the tech guy, he's a villain in so many things. He has like no lines, but I'm like, I know you. Dominic Purcell from Legends of Tomorrow is one of the bad guys in this movie. Doesn't say a word. He's in this entire movie. I love it. Great bad guy crew.
I have to say, because we're on that note, I don't care for Dougray Scott's performance in this.
Sure.
I don't really like Ambrose in the sense I think he's the weakest villain of the Mission Impossible franchise.
More than John Voight?
Not in the sense of performance, but as like what he means in the story. I think that like you're right about the biosite thing and like outthinking Ethan in that regard, but he feels outside of that scene rather dumb for his the way he goes about his plans and how he like a great example is when Stamp does have the Ethan mask on, the fact that he doesn't catch on to it when he can't speak, that the scene doesn't move quicker to make Ethan have to move and get the thing out of there. That wouldn't be the way he caught on before he shoots the shit out of him.
I hear that. I view that as a character flaw, not a negative of the movie.
Sure.
Because he is an asshole and he's all about getting his rocks off. He wanted to kill Ethan so bad. He was blinded that it wasn't his.
I hear you on everything that like is about like the dark idea of Ethan as represented by Ambrose, and it's there, but it isn't there enough for me in this movie.
Sure.
It's not. He's not developed enough. The idea of him betraying the IMF and like a history behind them he doesn't impress me, and he doesn't connect for me.
Sure.
So like I'm not saying like, oh, it's an objective thing. It is subjective, and for me, I don't like his performance very much, and I don't like the character as much. Frankly, to me, I think he's outmatched by both Richard Roxburgh as Stamp and Brendan Gleeson, who I know is a much better actor from just everything else I've ever seen him in. John C. McCloy as the guy who runs Biosite. Frankly, I wish that it was him and Richard Roxburgh like being the two main guys. Like he's his muscle and he's the guy running things,
Sure.
and that he was the bad guy for this movie rather than Ambrose's.
I had that same thought, honestly, when Brendan Gleeson showed up in the movie. I was like, oh, there's a movie over here where he could have been the villain. I'm kind of with you, Sparkz, on Ambrose. Part of the reason why I checked out of the film, as I mentioned a little earlier, is because I got to the point where I was like, I don't get why any of this is happening. I don't understand why you're doing it, what you're doing. And I'm not really enjoying this performance. So I was just kind of like, yeah, all right. How much longer till we're done?
Yeah.
This is a plot from Metal Gear Solid 5, so I was very much into the idea of manufacturing a virus to get the cure to. This is the same plot from Spider-Man with Dragon's Breath. We're going to manufacture a disease, release it out into the open. We're going to make a cure and make billions of dollars. This is also a very tropey thing, but like this, it's not as
I
tight
get
as other versions of this trope.
That I think it is it, because like I recognize the trope and I kind of understand on a surface level of what's happening. It's just the way it's the package that it is presented is not strong enough for me to really care, I guess.
Sure.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. This is not one of those movies that like I want to defend like a movie that's good. It was easier for me to accept the things because this movie is, I mean, you guys watched the movie. Like, I'd rather just accept it than not accept
Yeah,
it.
you're maybe meeting the movie on its level in a way that I frankly just can't.
That's fair. Yeah.
And like I can't tell you if it's entirely pacing or it's editing or it's writing or performance. It could be a different factor.
It's all of them.
Different points.
No, it is all of it.
Depending on what point of the film it's in. I don't. Ambrose, some of the I like. Let me find a positive. I like the bit where he wants to take off Stamp's finger because he's like, I know what kind of show I'm running and that kind of thing. Like it's one of the things where I think I wish he just had a little bit more identity. And I feel like because of the amount that you get him working with Tandy Way Newton, you should have more of that. And I don't think it's there. I don't think it's there all the way.
Yeah.
On that note, I really love Tandy Way Newton. I love her dearly. I'm devastated that and I love that she makes the choice to inject herself. That is like a moment of agency for her.
Yeah. And
then she never speaks again for the rest of the movie. Doesn't say a single word. And
yeah.
I'm like, man, that stinks.
Yeah, I didn't want her to die because like I didn't think that they would do a thing where Tom Cruise is going to shoot her to save her. Like I didn't think they would do that. I would be okay if she was going to commit suicide to basically save the world.
Yeah,
because that would have given her agency too. But then they also don't do that. She's such an incredible talent. And I think she's really good in this movie. But like again, I've watched interviews like talk about this movie. Like she had a bad time on this movie. Just because, being in this came out in 2000, but, like the late 90s and just being a woman in the industry, especially a woman of color.
Yes.
She was very young at the time too. So like Tom Cruise was very stressed to make this the best sequel possible. So like it's partially on him, but it's like she also said it's not his fault. He was doing his best, it was the industry and stuff. So like it's unfortunate,
It's the scene where they first meet that I think she was talking about was really uncomfortable for her, and they tried like role reversal and it didn't work, and like it just wasn't working for them on an actor level.
Yeah, and this is like where the movie really lost me the most. It's the stuff where like he's kind of just like stalking her, and it's really weird. And like I understand like you're trying to like recruit her as like an agent. The beginning part, but like the stuff like the car scene, while a good stunt, is insane.
Yes.
Like she just straight up tries to kill him, and I'm like, but it's like sexy. It's like we're sexy spies, but like that's attempted murder.
It shouldn't have needed that whole extra section. Like we should have just gone the pacing. This is a great example of the pacing in the movie being wrong. Is like I think in the tub stuff, you go from there and that beat of engaging with her to the Anthony Hopkins scene, and we spend way too much time on the him and her just talking before we even get to, it's like 35 minutes into the movie when Anthony Hopkins says, "This is the mission."
Yeah.
And like that is too long. It's just too long.
I agree. I do think we could trim the movie still, but it is an important fact that like he has to know her and sleep with her, and then Anthony Hopkins like knew that, was counting on that to get her into the entire operation. But like, yeah, 35 minutes is way too long to start the actual mission of the movie.
Yeah.
But all that legwork needed to happen. Just tighten it up. Just crunch those numbers.
Yeah, I think that it just takes way too long to get us there. And I think there's frankly a better way to have written it, to have it already exist. Like, you know, you could already establish that he was involved with her or something, and that like he'd already been with her because she left Ambrose, or because they also had a previous relation. Like, there's just ways to get this more efficiently.
Yeah.
And it's sloppy. It just feels sloppy. Getting all the way up to the Hopkins.
We just don't need 20 minutes.
Exposition.
20 minutes of them just like being sexy together. Like that's a large part of the movie. And like, again, like I love sexy people. Like they're both hotties, but like so much of the movie, it's just them like staring at each other for like, come on.
Now, I will put out a positive related to that, which is that after he gets the mission statement from Hopkins, because of their relationship, it is I do think this is one of the core parts of who Ethan is. And it is functionally something I appreciate at least being in this movie, because it does, I think, again, continue a consistency about who his character is, which is that he really doesn't want her to be involved. He doesn't want her in danger. This is very important to him.
Yeah.
And when he has when he has the line where he says, "Would it make you feel better if I didn't want you to do this?" And she says, "Yes, much." And then he shouts, "Then feel better."
That's a
and
good
he's very
scene.
clearly upset. Like that is a fundamental truth of who Ethan Hunt is and how he feels about other people being involved and put in danger on his name.
Yeah.
And that part works for me.
Yeah. I love anytime Ambrose is disguised as Ethan, because it's Tom Cruise getting to be a little nasty. And I like when he has a scowl on his face, because I think he's good at it, and he doesn't get to be a bad guy enough.
Yeah, I agree. Sparkz, last night, little inside baseball, you talked about a little bit about something about Ethan's character in this film feeling different than the others.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that?
There's this part of this is, I think this is the one that takes him too close to trying to be American James Bond.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
As a character. And some of that's like the sexiness with the ladies, but some of that is like, I think the only way that anything is even kind of recognizable about this being Ethan Hunt and not just Tom Cruise plays American James Bond is because Tom Cruise made a choice to make sure that stayed there. And those moments where I see who Ethan Hunt is as we know him from the previous movie and in the rest of the franchise, are far between.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I also felt that they were people's perception of Ethan is a little strange, considering we only have the first film to go off of.
You know how there's the Austin Powers movie where Tom Cruise is playing Austin Powers?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It feels so directly like parodying this specific movie. Like it is this specific idea of the spy that Tom Cruise has played, and that is not, to me, who Ethan Hunt is in the franchise as a whole.
And also remember this movie came out. This was also after GoldenEye, before the next James Bond movie.
Yes.
So like the idea of wanting like, hey, we need a cool action spy man. Let's turn Mission Impossible maybe more into a little bit more James Bond. Totally makes sense from the producer angle. Again, it's cynical and shitty. Maybe again, I got sick motorcycle fights in here, but like maybe don't completely change the trajectory of a franchise once it started.
I think the key thing being just go from Mission Impossible 1. What is absolutely critical about Ethan is that he cared about the people that he was working with, regardless of if like the John Foyt performance doesn't deliver that back to him.
Yeah,
he cares about the people he works with, and that matters. And in this movie, he doesn't care about Ambrose. He doesn't care about the other ways that the people who would have been associated with him in the IMF would know anything about this.
He cares about Luther.
He cares about Luther, and he cares about Tandyway. But it does feel still even against what Tom Cruise is trying to perform in a sexualized way, like a way where she's being reduced down to an object.
Yeah.
Regardless of how much Tom Cruise is clearly trying to play away from that. That is in this script, and that is in this movie structure.
Ooh.
And it's just not who Ethan is.
Yeah.
When you see him in the first one or the ones after, he's just so much a person who cares about people.
This is also the Mission Impossible franchise is very interesting because it's not like a franchise where a movie comes out in '96, the sequel comes out a year later. This one comes out 4 years later with the same one of the same writers, but like an entirely different creative team. Like besides that, like new director and stuff like that. And then it's when does 3 come out? Like
2006, I think.
So yeah, 6 more years later for the next sequel. That's like 10 years for 3 movies. Like that's not typical, right? So like there's no like through line idea of what the franchise should be until I think 3 and success of 3, really. Because like this one, like it doesn't feel like that first movie whatsoever, except that it has the same character who doesn't feel like the same character at all.
Yeah.
He opens up and he's like a rock star. He's like, Tom Cruise said the best way for me to reintroduce him is to be free climbing. That's where he has it in life. Like he's not the same Ethan. I'm like, sure, I get it, but like you feel like a different character.
Yeah.
You feel like more like a Mr. Rockstar instead of like team player spy man.
Yes.
And again, like they're just trying to make a different movie. It didn't totally work.
Yes.
Great action movie, like not a great Mission Impossible movie, maybe.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I've got a couple. I do like Ethan giving Ambrose shit for being stupid and killing the scientist who had Chimera in him because he's not good at the mission shit.
Yeah.
I just wish there was more of that development about their. Frankly, it's the fact that they don't have enough screen time with each other. They have the one scene where they're shouting at each other in Biosite, and that's kind of it as far as like dialogue between the two of them. And so everything about like what their history is with each other is told through us in exposition or just vaguely hinted at, but it's not developed.
The only exposition we get about them is that, oh yeah, he's doubled me a couple times. I didn't like his vibe. That's all we get.
I know he's quick on the gun and he likes to lay some bodies down.
Yeah.
Like, and there's so much more you could have done for how these two, like, I'm trying to think of a good parallel, but there is one of like when someone's met their match because like they're so intimately familiar with what they do and who they are.
Another Mission Impossible movie, maybe.
Another Mission Impossible movie.
Fast and Furious movie, maybe.
Even like, yeah, it's just like this idea has been executed much cleaner and better and with more depth for the character, and like it should be something that develops Ethan, that another IMF agent who would be connected to him so much so that he would be able to impersonate him has betrayed IMF again. That's like, the foundation of what we have for this character is a movie where he was betrayed by an IMF agent and his team got lost because of it. And now a movie where the guy who pretends to be him for missions has now betrayed the IMF. And like, you kind of got to look at that through a certain lens as a character and analyze it. And this movie's just not interested in doing that with Ethan Hunt, which any other Mission Impossible movie, as we'll see down the road, absolutely would be.
Yeah. It definitely feels like, again, hiring John Woo, it definitely feels like we want to turn this into a big action franchise.
Right.
And like, again, like I think the action in this movie is really good, but the story stuff in between, it's like they're having the one guy write this movie. You should have got David Nett back. Maybe he was the guy to wrangle in that first script.
This is some of the really bad slow-mo in this movie, the kind where like it doesn't mean anything. It's just a guy falling to the ground and dropping his gun. Like it's a guy who I don't even know the name of. We're just showing it for some reason, and like it's not well interspersed and it's not well set up. And like I said, John Woo has done this kind of stuff better in other places. And this is
before and after.
And this is just not one of the finer outings for this kind of method. It also just like, for me, it doesn't work the way that like his camera pull-ins usually would. It just comes off as hokey. It feels totally inconsistent with some of the like more grand setup shots that he'll do, or some of the transitions, like the dress transition when they go to Spain in the beginning of the movie is such a clean looking thing, and then you get these like not good broken camera pull-ins that are supposed to heighten the drama, and like I don't care.
So I looked at the editor for this movie, and it has 2 editors, one who doesn't have a Wikipedia page and the other who does, and he's he's done a lot of great work. So, and he's worked with John Woo and like Michael Bay and Tony Scott in the past. Like he's an editor for action movies, but there was also another guy who worked on it who I can't find any info for. So I'm curious if there was like a second edit, again, that first 3.5 hour cut, Like, I'm curious if like, oh, we gotta chop this up.
It feels like there has to be, because there's just choices in here that don't make sense. I can give you a great example of the 180-degree rule that I was talking about. It's a scene where Ambrose is coming down on the knife on Ethan, and you are following on one side of them for that whole fight. But the moment it shows the shot where the CGI knife is above Tom's eye, you are suddenly on the other side of his head. Like, completely the polar opposite. It's jarring and it's confusing, and then you immediately revert back, and then you immediately revert back again. And like, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
I want to talk about that stunt real quick on how Tom Cruise has always wanted to die since the early days. That knife scene is mostly 95% practical, except for the one shot of CG for some reason. But that is a real knife that is on a string that falls to Tom Cruise's face 1 inch from his eye. And it actually falls 1 inch to his eye. He really wanted it to happen. Second, it has enough tension on it so Doug Ray Scott can put all the pressure he can on it to make it look real, which is something you're not supposed to do as a stunt person. It's very stupid. You're supposed to be pulling it, and you still get the same reaction that you're putting pressure on it. So Tom Cruise could have almost died wanting to be really cool. I'm glad you didn't, Tom. You got better about your stunts. Don't be so stupid about them. When I saw that video, I'm like, I cannot believe the studio was okay with that. He's really wanted to die since his 20s. That's crazy.
That's why he has his own insurance company.
Real quick, just breezing through some. The doves are a lot.
John Woo, baby!
The sexist dialogue from both Hopkins and Ambrose about women being deceitful and fickle
that sucks.
really, really stinks. I mean, like, Ambrose can be the villain, and so, like, that's one thing, but the fact that Hopkins does it too is like, boy, howdy, rough. This starts to feel just like the perspective that you want to share on women. And when you don't write the female character to have a lot of agency on her own, it's a real bummer.
Yeah.
It's so dramatic with the fake Ethan reveal of Stamp, the freaking choir coming up.
I love it.
It doesn't land for me. I'm not with the movie at that point.
That's fair. I was hooting and or hollering.
I'm not writing with it the way I wish I was. There's way too many repeated shots in the edits. I know this is something that John Woo does, but here it's just not working most of the time. Again, this could be an editing problem, but like, some of the repeated shots are like, this is just breaking the action in a way that doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
On a positive note, I do really like the build of like what he does with the shot composition in the edit with the stomping feet and going up the stairs for Tandyway. You have the dancers in Spain. This is the beginning of the movie, and you've got like them stomping their feet, and you're also being intercut with Tandyway traveling up the stairs, and it's a good like tension builder of where are they going and that kind of thing. I think that's really well done. John Woo's not asleep at the wheel here. It's just not a full vision.
Yeah. I love the scene again. When they're entering Biosec, and it's not a shot of them. It's the shot of them reflecting through the floor. So it's their full bodies, but it's always a mirror shot. I'm like, damn, John, you're bringing it. Yeah. Bring it more, please.
That's I've covered it.
Yeah, that final action scene, it is just completely ridiculous. First the motorcycle part, then this like drop kicking each other on a beach. I just think it's totally bananas. And like, yeah, like I'm not checked out of the movie, but I'm just here having a good time, just watching fun things happen.
Yeah, I didn't say anything about it, but obviously I love Ving Rhames in this movie.
Oh my god, it's $800 Gucci shoes.
I really like Ving Rhames in this movie also. The last action scene, I gotta tell you, man, when he died, when he gets killed on the rock, I was like, oh, good, we're done. Thank heavens. And then he's alive again, and I'm like, just be done with this man. But that said, I may have been checked out of the movie at that point. I do think it's kind of cool when he kicks the gun up out of the sand that come out of nowhere.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
It's also again, like, this is one of those things where like not developing the character very well, and like this is not to me what the Mission Impossible franchise is, because most of the films do not end with like a brawl necessarily. And like John Woo's usually pretty good at this, but to me this doesn't land, because why is Ambrose going after Ethan? This, like, he's kind of already lost. Like, the only thing you're going to gain from going is either killing him or getting killed.
Yeah,
and like he could bail, and live to pull a scheme another day. And like it's bizarre, and we don't know enough about him, and nor do I feel like there's enough of a relationship there to feel the conviction to like, I absolutely just want you dead at this point. And I wish that was there. I wish that was more present in who Ambrose is, that he's like, at this point, I only want it to be you or me, and I don't care which way it goes. And I wish that we hit that level with the character.
Sure.
All right. Well, why don't we do this then, Ben?
Yeah.
This was not the only Mission Impossible you saw, but one of the only Mission Impossibles you've seen prior to this, right?
This is my first one.
Oh gosh.
Who rate it?
Oh, 5.
Wow, that's actually really
I don't have nostalgia goggles for this movie. If I have nostalgia goggles for anything, it's just that soundtrack. Because the soundtrack was in my dad's car when I was younger, and of course he would only play the 2 songs, I Disappear and Take a Look Around by Limp Bizkit, first one by Metallica. And other than that, that's all. This was mine. I didn't take anything away from it as a little kid. The only scene that I remember when I first saw this movie as a little kid is when Ethan takes the sunglasses off and tosses them and it explodes. That was the only thing I remember, and how it goes into the Mission Impossible theme. The rest of the movie, I'm like, yikes. I mean, good action, yes, but story drags. And it's just, there was definitely a point in this movie where I'm just like, be over. I'm done. I want to play Tears. I was this close to go upstairs and get my social. I can't do it. I gotta power through this movie.
Ryan or Sparkz, rate it.
I'll give it a 6.5. I think it's got a lot of really, really fun stuff. I do like the villain. It's just unfortunately one of those things where like he made Face Off before this, which is so interesting because so it's not his first like American movie. But it definitely feels like he didn't have full reign to be himself like he did on Face Off, because Face Off is a weird ass movie.
It is the one that made him quit Hollywood, though.
Yeah.
And go back.
And he's made nothing but like awesome like Chinese epics, like the Red Cliff Parts 1 and 2. It's like a 4-hour long epic. 6.5. Like I almost gave it a 7, but like I'm never gonna watch this again, and I generally like to watch 7. So like I'll watch the fun stuff on YouTube again. Like I think some of that stuff's real fun. I love those.
Sparkz?
Being pretty generous, it's probably a 6. There's things to like in it, but like it just doesn't vibe for me. And I will admit that like a fair bit of it is like already committed to an idea of what I like about Mission Impossible, and most of that is not in this movie, which isn't 100% fair to it, but it is my experience viewing it. And so like I wish I liked it more. I feel like there were ways to execute better on it, especially whether it's for John Woo or just for the story it wants to tell, and it doesn't get there, and I don't vibe with it the way I wish I did. And this is the second time I've gone into it just really wanting to give it a chance and give it its most fair shake, and like every time I think, oh man, I'm gonna like, just like you said, Brandon, like this is the thing that I'm gonna latch onto, and like I do really like this about it, and then it hits me with a thing where I'm like, I just don't give a shit. I wish I gave a shit, and I don't give a shit. One other note I forgot is that I do really like when Ethan pulls the hospital bed scene with Brendan Gleeson's character McCloy, and it makes him think that he just like fell asleep in the limo and had a messed up dream about the guy he got killed.
That was pretty cool.
I think that's really effective and just really cool. And I really like that. And again, like Brendan Gleeson's such a talent that it's one of those things where I'm kind of thrown by the fact that he's not given more to do.
Here's the thing, y'all. Brendan Gleeson was not the star, even though he's an older man already. He is not the star that he is today. He is still a small ass actor in the year 2000.
No. That's what I mean. Is like I'm fully aware. I am bringing like later knowledge going back to a movie at a time period when it is, and like I've seen Brendan Gleeson so much more where I know what he's capable of, and I'm going here and I'm like, man, if only he were the like. And I get that that's not the time of his star power. It's just what is on the plate here is not for me.
Yeah, I think I'll give it a 6, but a more generous 6. I'm not quite at Ryan's peak, but there is things that I do like in this movie, enough to be like, yeah, I don't truly hate it. Once I get into like 5 territories, I kind of feel like I start to hate a movie. So I think I'll give it a 6. Yeah, it's an all right time. I like Ryan said, I'll never watch it again, but yeah. Shall we book club?